Man, we've been in a really big prospects mood as of late. Talking about the young guys, talking about the players that will carry the future of the NHL. And we've got ourselves another video later today talking about one of these names that is going to be in the highest echelon of players in the next coming few years. But for this video over here, I wanted to go over to Toronto Maple Leafs because even though I do love my Canucks prospects and my Canadiens prospects and my Red Wings prospects, there are indeed still guys on the Toronto Maple Leaf side of things that I indeed cheer for and I want to see the best out of, and guys that we actually have discussed before on the YouTube channel. So, today we're talking about the Toronto Marlies and Nick Robertson. Robertson's a name that you might be a little bit familiar with because of the overall hype train that he established for himself ever since the 2019-20 season in the OHL. But we're also talking about somebody else. Let's talk as well about Semyon Der-Arguchintsev, and that's a name that I seriously have not mentioned on this YouTube channel in like 2.5 years. We made a video talking about Semyon Der-Arguchintsev back in like the summer of 2018. This was before I went to college, before I went to the BCIT Radio Arts program. It was immediately after I graduated high school, and that was a summer and 2 years ago. So it's been a very long time since we've shifted the focus to Der-Arguchintsev on this YouTube channel, but hey, there's a reason we're talking about these two here, and I will give a big shout out over to NHLTradeTalk.com because they published an article talking about these two guys together, and as a result, I will leave a link in the description to that article if you want to read it. The reason we're talking about Nick Robertson and Der-Arguchintsev today is because of the fact that these two guys have a partnership that has lasted the past few years, but now in 2021, in the month of March to April, has been fully blossoming in the AHL. Let's go over the player profile over here. Nick Robertson, because he's probably the more popular one amongst the two, was the Toronto Maple Leafs second-round pick in the 2019 NHL entry draft. I think we all kind of know the story here. Robertson was one of the youngest players in that draft. He's a half Filipino guy, so for me personally, as a full Filipino guy, I love to see that. He's 5'9", he's 161 pounds, born on September 11th, 2001. We're not going to talk anymore about that, but in his draft year, and in the years prior to, he had been playing with the Peterborough Petes as a somewhat small, undersized forward who was going out there getting 33 points in 62 games the year before he was drafted, and 55 points in 54 games the year he was. He was a fairly good, productive player who had a very good skill set, but the fact that he was small, the fact that the projection as to whether or not he could be an NHL player was questioned at the time, it led to him being taken a lot later than people thought he would be taken, and as a result, it was Toronto that ultimately came away with this player at that 2019 draft, and the year immediately after, Nick Robertson went out there and absolutely shattered the expectations of every Leafs fan that was out there paying attention to this prospect. 46 games played, and 55 goals. He was over a goal a game. He had 86 points in total, one of the highest points per game in the entire OHL. In fact, he was just behind Jan Yannick, Marco Rossi, and Connor McMichael. So right away, he's ahead of Quinton Byfield, Cole Perfetti, Arthur Kaliev, and Tomasino. He was out there outscoring so many of these players, and in terms of the goal side of things, well, he was first in the league in that, first in the league in goals per game by a long shot as well. So Nick Robertson was out here in the 2019-20 season absolutely tearing the roof off the house as a member of the OHL's Peterborough Petes. It was the footwork, it was the skills, it was the relentless pressure he would apply. It was all these things that combined into a package that made Nick Robertson such a dangerous goal scorer. And that carried over into the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs, where he actually did suit up with the Maple Leafs. He played 4 games against Columbus. He got a goal, which was a very big deal. A lot of people came out there and were super excited to see him score in one of the earlier games. But People were expecting a whole bunch coming out of him in the next year, which would have been this year, 2020-2021. Unfortunately, though, we all kind of know what happened. He suffered an injury. He didn't really play all too much with the Maple Leafs. He played a few minutes, a few shifts actually, but that was about it. He had himself 2 injuries on the year. He was sent over to the Marlies, and as a result, take a look at the total points right now. He's got 10 points in 12 games played as a 19-year-old playing in the AHL. Hey, that's not bad. But during the 3 seasons Nick Robertson spent with the Peterborough Petes, there was another guy in this team that was also a Toronto Maple Leafs eventual draftee. Semyon Der-Arguchintsev is the older of the two right here, but he is also a Toronto Maple Leafs prospect, taken in the 2018 NHL entry draft in the 3rd round. Back when he was drafted, he was wrapping up his 2nd year with the Petes, 51 points in 68 games played. The year after, he had himself 46 points in 62 games. Definitely not bad. He was out there with an individual skill set of his own that allowed him to prosper and do some very good things. And in 2019-20, he had 75 points in 55 games played. The same year, Nick Robertson went out there and tore the roof off the house. These two were playing together, and as the top 2 point producers on the Petes that year, Leafs fans had a ton to cheer about because they had 2 guys under their name doing things together and having this success. Now though, after starting out 2020-2021 in the KHL where he had 6 points in 17 games played and 0 points in 4 games in the postseason, SDA, as people like to dub him, has made his way back over to North America, and he is now with the Marlies, where he's wrapped up the first 3 games of his AHL career, scoring 4 assists in the process. And in fact, some of these assists have come on the stick of Nick Robertson as well, because the first game that we had where both Robertson and SDA were together, they actually combined for the game-winning goal against the Stockton Heat. It's actually kind of funny because the goaltender they scored on to win the game was actually Garrett Sparks, so yeah, nice connections over there. But Semyon Der-Arguchintsev had himself 2 assists in this first game, and if we go over to the game report here on MapleLeafsHotStove.com, there is indeed a very in-depth write-up talking about how these guys played, Robertson scoring the goals, SDA kind of guilty of overpassing early on, decided to shoot a little bit later, but there are some very nice quotes that I wanted to go over here as well from the Toronto Marlies coaching staff. This is what Greg Moore, the Marlies head coach, said about Der-Arguchintsev. You can tell in the little pockets of time when he is away from the puck that he is scanning the rink and finding his teammates. He can predict where the movement is going. He has a special way of putting pucks into areas as players are moving into it, even if it's cross-ice or a direction that is not in the flow of the game in which he is moving. He's a special talent in how he sees it, but a lot of it stems from his habit of how he is pre-scanning and finding options in the pockets of space away from the puck, which allows him to make high-level reads when he has the puck. Now, I just want to say first and foremost, that's a really, really great quote. I love that over here from Greg Moore. This is what he said about the entire line of Nick Robertson, Semyon Der-Arguchintsev, and Joey Anderson. He thought that they all complemented each other really well. Uncle Joey, as a mentor, did a really good job talking to those guys between every shift, helping coach them up with the details. It was really great to see the creative play between the 3 of them, and you can tell that Robertson and SDA have some chemistry and have spent a lot of time together. That line had a huge impact on the game, back when the game actually happened, which was on April 1st. And so even though we might not see Nick Robertson in the NHL anytime soon, same could probably be said for Semyon Der-Arguchintsev. At the end of the day, if you're a Toronto fan and you're still looking towards the future, you're taking a look at when Matthews is going to be 25, 26, 27, and Marner's going to be in that same range as well, not to mention Nylander and all the guys. Tavares will be probably halfway through his contract. If you're still looking at the prospects, still looking at the youth of the future, hey, the Marlies have got you covered. Robertson, the #1 prospect in the system. SDA, his very close line mate and very good chemistry OHL former partner as well. These guys are here together, these guys are combining on some goals, and these guys are both doing well. Robertson just under a point per game, Der-Arguchintsev is over a point per game in a pro men's league where Der-Arguchintsev is 20 years old and Robertson is 19, so hey, that's pretty good, isn't it? Talk to me in the comments what you think about Nick Robertson, SDA, the Marlies, and the Leafs prospects as a whole. I'd be really interested in seeing what you have to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls99, and bye.